Welcome to Proof of PR, your passport to the world of public relations for teams building on-chain. I'm your host, Kelley Weaver, CEO of Melrose PR, a leading provider of crypto communications and PR strategy, and founder of BITWIRE, the modern newswire reimagined for today's comms professionals. Get ready for an inside look into the future of finance, technology, and entrepreneurship from those driving innovation in our space. Join us as we learn how they generate headlines, cut through the noise, and grow their brand awareness through media placements, press mentions, and thought leadership. These are the stories behind their success. This is Proof of PR. Welcome back to Proof of PR. Today, I'm sitting down with Emma Pizzutti, head of PR at Hype, a highly recognized crypto marketing and communications agency. Since 2017, Hype has grown from a community building shop to a 100 plus person agency with a client roster that reads like a who's who of Web3. SUI, Optimism, Eigenlayer, Babylon, and many more. Emma came up through Waxman, one of the most respected Web3 PR firms in Europe, before joining Hype and building out their earned media practice. She's now head of PR, and she thinks a lot about what it actually takes to earn coverage, shape narratives, and build real credibility in a space that can be notoriously hard to cut through. So happy to have you here, Emma. Welcome to Proof of PR.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
So let's talk a little bit about your journey into crypto PR. You first started your career in PR at Waxman, and now you're head of PR at Hype. So how did you get here?
Yeah, I think always I've just been so interested in storytelling. Like growing up in Ireland, there's this kind of rich history of mythology and storytelling culture, and even some different towns will have like a storyteller person, and what they do is like tell stories. So that's always just been very important to me. When I went to college, I did languages, so I was studying a lot of literature, all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think just I did a master's in politics, realized that there's a lot happening in policy in the crypto sphere, and that's where I want to be, and that's where I want to, work on this storytelling for others. And it's so fast moving. Just get in there and see what happens.
I really enjoy following you on Twitter and your takes on earned media. So we'll get into some of that. But you run the PR practice, the earned media practice. And I know Hype has an interesting model as a full stack super agency. So it's not just the earned media, it's all different parts of the marketing stack. So how does PR fit into that broader picture of what you do for your clients?
Yeah, so as you said, Hype is full stack. So all the different components of marketing. So PR, obviously, but also things like strategy, community, socials, short form video, really anything you can think of in terms of marketing, there's a department at Hype for it. What I find really interesting is clients essentially can like pick and choose what they want, kind of like a bento box. So not all clients will have PR because they don't all need to have PR. But when, we are working on a client and in conjunction with these different departments, it just streamlines things a lot on our end that, say you don't want a crisis, but if there is a crisis, we can act really quickly with, community and socials are already looped in. We're all saying the same thing, like singing from the same hymn sheet. And then for things like narrative messaging, we make sure that, we're aligned across all departments from the outset. When an announcement goes live, we can coordinate with social straight away. So really, we just kind of fit in with everybody else, and we're able to, work alongside of them, help each other. Like if we need assets, we can get them quickly from creative. It just does like streamline a lot of the processes on our side.
That makes sense. And I love, your sort of desire to tell stories is what drew me into PR as well. And I think that earned media is, we have the ability to really shape the narrative in a way. And so it must be nice to also have those other pieces of the marketing stack too available to you.
Yeah, no, it is nice. And I mean, I'm working with like such talented people who are all across the industry. People have come from such different backgrounds, like, and are now in different types of marketing. There's one guy who's working on like genes as a biologist before and just really took to like content strategy. So it's been really cool to be able to work with people all across the world as well, and all these different areas that I hadn't even thought of before.
I love that about our industry, the global nature of it. You've worked across some incredibly technical projects. How do you approach finding the story when the product itself is tricky to explain?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because I think I go back to it as in, as a human, what are we going to connect to? And humans connect well with other humans before anything else. And, we want that connection. It's something that's kind of innate nearly, that we want to like understand and listen to other people. So I think the first thing that I do when something is very technical is just get back to like what brought the people here. So an example that I was thinking about recently is with a client. It was a big technical project, very, very cool, but just not something that you can understand straight away. So I was speaking to one of the founders and was talking about all of this like very important humanitarian work that he had done with an international organization previously, and how he was able to take that and bring it to where he is today and kind of, keep that thread going. He's still working in something similar, but just looking at how he came from, working with people in horrible situations and helping them to now working on this in crypto, and it's still kind of in the same vein. So even though this project is like incredibly technical, we have this very interesting background that people can connect to easily and then understand how he got to where he is now.
I love that. It's so true about the human stories is what draws you in. I'm curious what your pitching process actually looks like. How do you think about which journalists and outlets are the right fit for any given story or moment?
Yeah, I think it depends on like what the client is saying and who their audience is, because a lot of the time, a client will want to be in Forbes or something like that, right? One of the top tier mainstreams. But if that's not their audience, then there's no point in them being there. It's just like wasted effort, wasted time on their part. So the main thing is who is their audience, but also what's happening right now in that space in journalism. Because in crypto, especially, but I mean, across the board, we're just seeing these newsrooms shrinking, and it's really sad that people you've been working with for so long are, not in those roles anymore, and the ones who still are just under so much more pressure. Their inboxes, where they were getting like 50 pitches a day, are now like hundreds of pitches a day, right? So in terms of the pitching process, it's about understanding what the journalist scope is and what they're interested in. Because a journalist I was speaking to recently, who I've worked with for a long time, I just noticed from his coverage that it had changed. So it went from like multiple stories on multiple different things every day to now one specific story like, once a day. And reaching out to him, he basically said that he's not really taking pitches anymore, because his editor is just saying, you get one story, this is your one story, and kind of prescribing it every day, because that's kind of the way the model has changed. So in terms of the pitching process, just knowing what the journalists are doing, what their coverage is looking like, and what they're going to be interested in then as well.
We've noticed this too, and it's something that I wanted to ask you about with the shrinking newsrooms in crypto media. It's become incredibly competitive and challenging, although even in this world where everyone discovers information using AI, I feel like the trade publications carry outsized weight. But how are you navigating this? And is it something that you've also seen in more mainstream, like the Forbes type of outlets as well? Or do you think that this is specific to crypto media?
When we're looking at the Forbes type of outlets, they're covering more crypto than they were before, because we're getting institutions coming into the industry, so they're covering more of that now as well. Like I think Fortune has gotten a few new journalists. Jack Hubenek is there now. Like all of those type of outlets are covering more. But what that means is, people where they were getting their crypto news previously are able to get it from the mainstream ones as well. But at the same time, as you mentioned, the trade publications are so much more important. I think it was Muckrack recently published a study that 94% of AI citations are coming from earned media. So if, for clients, if they get something in a trade publication, like a feature or something in a lower tier outlet, it actually means a lot more than, a quick one liner or something like that in Forbes or Bloomberg or whatever. Because if the LLM is picking it up and able to take from that big long piece rather than just like a snippet, it means a lot. Obviously, it's great to be in any outlet whatsoever, but the lower ones the clients mightn't have considered before have become so much more important, because if LLMs are pulling from them, they're able to get more content, and the lower tiers are kind of happier to spotlight them in a way that maybe mainstream wouldn't be.
The sort of quality and quantity of the coverage drives the LLM. Also, what we found is that anything that's paywalled, the LLMs can't read. So if you're thinking about a Bloomberg, they may not be able to index that. Has that been your experience too?
Yeah, I have seen that. I think as well, there are certain outlets that they're going to get syndicated, and if there's a paywall, people get around the paywall and they'll syndicate on other things as well. But it's just not as strong that if you have, like you said with Bloomberg, if there is a paywall, the LLM really isn't going to pick it up that easily. But what I've seen as well from something like Cointelegraph, say, that got delisted on Google, obviously when something is published there, it's not very searchable, but when it's syndicated in another outlet, that's being pulled by the LLMs and like by Google and that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, leading into the fall, Cointelegraph was pulling forward as the clear leader, and then it just all changed quickly. And I know they're fighting hard to get that back, but it is interesting. And with that in mind, one of the things I want to talk about was just the timing of the news cycle in crypto. It moves so quickly. And I've been in this industry for a decade, so I don't have much perspective outside of it. But so that's all I know is it moving so quickly. But how are you navigating the rapidly changing, knowing when to push your clients and when to wait, knowing that the storyline might not be hot on Friday that it is on Monday?
Yeah, I mean, first I have notifications on for like everything. It's kind of crazy. And every morning my LLM gives like a rundown of this is what happened, this is what you should focus on for today based on what my clients are doing. It kind of like filters through things. But for clients, what I've noticed even in the past just couple of years is what we would have been talking about before for, we're taking maybe like a few days to focus on this idea and build it out, or like this journalist wants commentary, but we can take a week and we can send it later. Now it's like we're doing everything in a few hours so that we can get ahead of this news cycle. So, if there's a client who has a story, we want to get it out there, we're not waiting as long as we would have before. Everything just needs to move quicker. Even things like, getting commentary out there. I've gone to clients and I'm like, look, I'm sorry, I know you're busy, but I need this in 30 minutes if you do want to be included in this piece that we had been working towards. And on their end, I'm sure it's not, easy to be able to turn things around like that. But on our end as well, we're just juggling so many balls at the same time and trying to make sure that everybody across the board is happy. There's just more pressure, I suppose, on everybody.
Sometimes it is a speed game in terms of who can turn in their quotes in a time that is going to work for the reporter to get their story done. You talked about how there's more reporters. You mentioned Fortune as an example, more reporters at more mainstream outlets that cover this industry. How do you approach more mainstream media with your clients? And, how are you coaching them through the value of that versus trades, or maybe building a flywheel to get them towards mainstream? I'm curious how you approach that with your clients.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it does depend on what the audience that they're looking towards is interested in. So a lot of the institutional ones, obviously being in mainstream, makes sense. That's what they're going to be reading. But as I say like all the time to clients, everything is incremental and you're building towards something all the time. So, if there's a founder in a project who are completely unknown and they really, really, really want to be in Forbes, it typically can't happen the next day. We did have an example recently where we got a client into Forbes within the first month and they had been unknown before, but that's because this story, we were able to build it out and like, it was really interesting, very, very cool. But most of the time it does take that kind of incremental step because you have to prove to these journalists that your client is also somebody worth speaking to, and they kind of need to have a track record then as well. Because a lot of the time when you see these headlines in the mainstream outlets, it's either like a huge raise or this person came from this project before and now they're here. There is kind of a little bit of a pattern. Obviously there's more thrown in there, but a lot of the major headlines are like, this company raised 100 million, or this person who had been here before and was very successful is now here. So we do need to kind of, make sure the clients are proving themselves and building up towards that.
That leads me to my next question, which is how do you think about founder visibility and personal brand as part of the broader communication strategy?
I think it's so important. Because a lot of the time when we think of a company, if it's doing good or if it's doing bad, we automatically think of the founder. Like if you think of, Tesla's doing really well, you think like, oh, Elon Musk has done a good job here. Or if stock sinks, you're like, oh, what's Elon Musk doing, right? You're always thinking about the founder. So I think building up a profile is really, really important. And again, like for hundreds and hundreds of years, people have been like talking about themselves and putting brands out there in a sense, just in a different way, that we always have kind of like followed people. So something that we're actually doing at the moment at Hype is a founder bootcamp, so that these founders can kind of prepare themselves and be ready, because not everyone is ready for like full stack marketing right now. But for founders to try and like build up their presence from like, stage zero and build their presence along with their project can be really beneficial. So, we're helping them kind of look at narrative, the best approach to socials, different tips and tricks at media, that kind of thing, so that as they're building their project, they're also building their brand.
Love that. And I completely agree with what you said earlier too. Humans want to follow humans, and founder-led marketing really works. What are some tips that you'd give to a founder who's just beginning, who maybe isn't ready for a full-blown earned media campaign? Where should they be sharing their thoughts? What types of things could they be maybe DIYing before they engage you?
Yeah, I mean, I think starting a profile, like building it up on X, on LinkedIn are really important. Again, like audiences matter. So where we had been on X all the time, now with institutions coming in, LinkedIn is so much more important, because, that's where they are, meeting them where they're at. Things that I like tell clients in this bootcamp, but also just tell people in general, is just to kind of be aware about media from the outset as well. That, understand that something like off the record, you need to say that beforehand. You can't like retroactively say it and just assume it's going to be okay. Or just be careful with what you're saying and to whom, because you don't want to scoop your announcement in advance. There's so many stories of people at events and they just hear people like give away these trade secrets. So just to kind of be aware of who's in the room with you and be careful, so that you're not kind of destroying your brand a little bit just as you're starting out, and, backtracking on all the progress that you're making.
Great advice. Something we've even had to coach clients about, no, don't put this on Twitter yet. We need to pitch it first. So community and PR overlap a lot in this space. And I think Hype started as more of a community focused agency, if I'm correct. How do you think about the relationship between the two, and where one ends and the other begins?
Yeah, I mean, I actually just got off a call with the community team, so this works out really well. I think PR and community can work together really, really well. One of the things that I mentioned earlier is, in terms of a crisis, you can access the community straight away, reassure them, make sure everything is okay. With founder-led marketing, get the founder to address the community, make sure everything's okay there. Because really, your community are the ones like using your product, the ones who are interested, especially if you have a token and something, there's information out there that may or may not be true, that the community are worried about. Maybe they don't have the full story. If there's a token involved, that is very much going to impact pricing. So when PR and community can work together very quickly to be able to get messaging out there, the founder can reassure them, tell them what's going on. Maybe something was picked up wrong, something like that. And it's protecting the project as a whole. But yeah, even like when we're working with a project and they get a really good placement and something that's really interesting, the community wants to know about it, but they mightn't have seen it. So like our community team is able to push that out to them. They can see what's happening and get that information and stay up to date as well.
Exactly. It's so symbiotic in terms of, making sure that and community is really stakeholders in crypto. And so they're a huge part of the audience.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Most newswire platforms were built for a different era of PR. Mass distribution, bloated pricing, coverage that looks impressive but rarely delivers real visibility. BITWIRE was built to change that. We give modern PR teams direct access to curated Tier 1 publishers that actually reach your audience, from leading crypto and business outlets to global financial media. Instead of blasting your news everywhere, BITWIRE focuses on quality distribution that builds credibility, authority, and search visibility through real placements and permanent links. Every distribution includes guaranteed publication, so you know exactly where your story will appear with no uncertainty and no wasted spend. Our platform lets you create and distribute a press release in minutes through a clean, intuitive workflow designed by PR professionals who understand what's at stake every time you hit publish. With fast turnaround times, your announcement moves quickly from submission to live coverage, helping you stay ahead of fast-moving markets and news cycles. No confusing subscriptions, no unnecessary spend. Just transparent, a la carte pricing so you can choose exactly where your news appears and scale as you grow. And when you need support, our team delivers unparalleled customer service at every step, from submission through publication, ensuring your release runs smoothly and successfully. Because today, it's not about sending your news everywhere. It's about placing it where it matters. BITWIRE, your news amplified.
We've talked a little bit about this already, but I want to dig in a little bit more to what you're seeing with GEO and the way that AI is indexing earned media. You talked about how Muckrack, I read that report too, that it crazy, over 90% of all of AI citations are coming from earned media. What does that mean in general? And do you think that that's going to evolve from trade publications to mainstream publications eventually? Or, how are you educating clients on how to make sure that they show up in search today?
Yeah, I think PR is obviously like a huge driver. Them having their own channels and putting things out there is big and important, but third-party endorsement is much more important to these LLMs than like what you're saying about yourself. They kind of go hand in hand, but in general, like if you tell somebody I'm a nice person, they mightn't believe you, but if somebody else tells them that you're a nice person, it's a lot easier to believe that, right? So it's the same kind of thing here, that AI is going to trust what the third parties are saying more than they're going to trust you yourself. But yeah, obviously being picked up in a top tier outlet, it's big, it's great. We don't know how AI exactly is going to evolve, but at the moment, the more information that you're giving the LLMs, the more that they're able to do with it and the more that they're able to populate. So if you do, if you're able to get a feature in one of these trade publications, it can be worth a lot more than something smaller in one of the mainstream ones, because there's much more information to pull from, and the LLM can learn more about you and your project much quicker, and can pick it up easily. But that said, I'm not dissing on mainstream whatsoever. Like, appearing there is still fantastic. It's a feat. It takes a lot to build up to as well. So when you get there, it's important. It feels good. It feels good for the PR team, for the founder themselves. But yeah, with GEO, it's interesting, and it's something that I think a lot of people are catching up to at the moment. Like, SEO has been nearly a buzzword for such a long time, so they're both kind of like coming up together now.
Yeah, we're keeping a close eye on it too, from the BITWIRE side for news distribution and announcement distribution, because what we've noticed is, at least right now, you can actually dictate the narrative by using tools like BITWIRE to post the news that you want to see, and it actually trains the LLMs effectively through certain publications, not others. But it's really interesting to fascinating to see how this is all evolving.
Yeah, and with BITWIRE as well, you have such a range of different outlets. So you have the trade ones, if that's the audience you're targeting, and the more mainstream ones. So it really does work on both levels and for like the various different audiences in crypto. It's a really great service.
Do you have an example of a campaign or a moment that you're really proud of and why it worked?
Yeah, so we I can't name clients specifically, so kind of more, ambiguous. But we had this client who, he was just someone who was very shy and was very worried about being in media and speaking to journalists. His social skills, like he was working on them to try and improve them. But I started doing media training with him, and to me, just seeing the difference that happened in him was huge. Like, not a campaign itself, but seeing how this person was able to like develop, come out of their shell, go from being quite like shy, nervous, not really knowing what to do in media interviews, to be having these huge interviews and just handling them flawlessly was incredible. I actually ended up training the whole team because he was like, this has been great. We want everybody to do this. But in terms of campaigns, another one that we had, it's quite recent. We had this client come to us who completely new project, nobody had heard of it before. Some of the team, like, would be known in the space, but new project, nobody had heard of them. And they wanted to go out with 2 huge announcements 2 weeks later in the same week, and wanted top tier mainstream coverage for this, or top tier crypto coverage for this as well. And first of all, we got this and we were like, okay, so we need to find the story here, pull it out, bring it in front of the right people, and just seeing what you can do when you're able to kind of formulate that story itself and then know who to coordinate with and who to go to. Because for both of these stories, they both got placed in the top tier crypto ones, but knowing that like this reporter will be interested and having the reporter accept straight away, and then knowing this reporter will be interested and having them be accepted straight away, it just feels really good because you know what you're doing in terms of the story, you know who to reach out to, and in the end they came to us and wanted to interview the founder on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange for this big interview. So yeah, I was really proud of that one. That one worked well.
Wow, two great examples. That's honestly, with timing of announcements from a project, that is an art
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, okay, because you don't want to exhaust the reporters and be hitting everybody up again and again. And so, to your point, being really intentional about who to pitch to is such a good example. And then I love the example of the founder who kind of found their footing and soared through the coaching and
Yeah.
training. And it's really true. You can learn anything. So I really love following you on Twitter, as I've mentioned, and LinkedIn. You share great content and really thoughtful. I think we're very aligned in terms of how we think about earned media and PR. So for anyone listening who doesn't already follow Emma on those channels, please go and do so, and we'll share the links. But how do you think about your own personal thought leadership and so for executives in the space who are maybe in service positions, how do you think about that? And how has it supported your career and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in crypto, we have to understand that like everybody is on Twitter in the industry. So that's somewhere that we need to be, and people are moving towards LinkedIn, so also somewhere we need to be. Um, as PR people, it is a bit intimidating to kind of put yourself out there when you're typically behind the scenes. And I do try, but I'm not always, consistently posting just because it's also a busy job and there's a lot happening, a lot of balls to juggle. Um, but I do think, it's again what we typically tell founders for founder-led marketing, that if you do want to like be out there, have people know who you are and people come to you, it's the same type of thing that, you know, if you want people to trust you and trust that you know what you're saying, you need to be like telling them what you are saying, and for them to kind of have that proof point of, oh, okay, this makes sense. And even just giving little bits of information, because if these founders can do like things well in PR, even if they're not my clients, it's good for the whole industry. And crypto for so long in mainstream has had a bit of an image problem, because a lot of people think of crypto and they think like meme coin pump and dump schemes. So if you're able to kind of give some information for people out there in general, maybe they're not interested in getting PR, maybe they are but it's not the right time, and maybe they're working with somebody else, like it actually doesn't matter, because it's about creating that image for the industry in general and having people see what it actually is, rather than what they read in one headline 2 years ago and have believed since.
Fully agree. Often at sort of social gatherings, when I tell people that I work in crypto PR, their response is something along the lines of, "Oh, thank goodness." Crypto needs this, which is funny, but we definitely have some holes to dig ourselves out of. You also mentioned some notifications for just keeping track of the news cycle and making sure that things are relevant. And you mentioned using AI tools. Do you feed? And I'm just curious on a brass tacks level. I think that that's really good advice for people. How do you think about setting up those alerts? And is it usually just from like a Claude type tool, or using others as well to scrape information?
So on Twitter, I have alerts for certain journalists, like ones who'll ask for, we want comments on this. Every so often, I have alerts set for them. On Telegram, there's certain groups that, post different news headlines. So good to be kept up to date there. And then, yeah, for Claude, I have it trained. We actually have an internal AI department who help me with this. So shout out to them, where basically it's just a bot, and it knows what my clients are, what they're doing, what would be of interest to them. And I've just fed it which outlets are of the most importance and kind of rank them that way as well. So basically every morning it lets me know what has happened overnight that I might have missed. And this could be applicable to this client. It's been really helpful because I do still check the different news outlets, but this just gives me, I log on in the morning, I know straight away what I need to know. And, I'm just kept up to date on this is happening in the industry. And this could be an issue. So you need to look into it. Or this could be a huge opportunity. So look into this.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that. Well, this has been such a great conversation. I'm so grateful to have you here today. Wanted to end with what's next for you and for Hype?
Yeah, so Hype will be celebrating its 10th birthday next year, which is exciting. But I think Hype typically does what people in crypto are looking for. So at the moment, there's a lot of talk on founder-led marketing. Not everybody is able to, go and kind of pay for that full stack. So we're doing the founder bootcamp, which we're launching cohort 2 in a couple of weeks' time. And, we have other departments that are kind of popping up, like short form video, that kind of thing. For me, I'm, here, happy, doing a job that I really love. And I'm going to be working on this founder bootcamp. So I'm excited.
I think that that's a great offering, especially as founders are leading into earned media. That's so foundational for the work that's to come. So I think that's a great offering. And yeah, just thank you again for being here today. This is such a great conversation. As I suspected, you're a wealth of knowledge and information and do such a beautiful job with earned media. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so fun.
Thanks for tuning in to Proof of PR. This episode was brought to you by BITWIRE.com, the modern newswire reimagined for today's comms professionals. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen today. To stay up to date on upcoming guests and news, visit proofofpr.com or follow us on Twitter at proofofpr. Until next time, keep learning, innovating, and hodling.